very welcome to another episode of the South Tip Arts Podcast. Now, Michael F. Kennedy has had an interesting life. From being picked up by the so-called cruelty man at the age of 2 and sent to an institution in Cappoquin, and his subsequent banishment to Ferryhouse here in Clonmel, to the theatres and opera houses of Europe, Michael's story transcends the awful treatment that he endured as a child. He is as philosophical as he is witty about the whole experience. His book 990 launches here at South Tip Arts Centre on the 14th of November at 7 p.m, and it is the first in a series that he's currently penning. I was delighted to have a chance to speak to Michael about his experiences and indeed his plans for further books. Michael F. Kennedy, you're very welcome to the South Tip Arts Podcast.
Thank you very much.
Your book 990 will be launching on the 14th of November here at the Arts Centre. I don't even know where to begin with the stories with you, but I suppose your history is so rich and you have so many stories to tell, and this is not your first book.
No.
Do you want to start there and tell me how this one became the first part? I know it is about your early life, so...
Yeah. 990 is basically my conviction order or number. So that number followed me around wherever I was. My crime, the conviction was actually at the age of 2 years of age, and you may gasp at that, but that was the law at the time, and I was sentenced to be sent to an industrial schools until I was 16 years of age. And the book is about that period, you know. The second books take you further on years later, working in opera and ballet television and all these famous people that, you know, I met along the way. And you reflect and think, how did a fella from Ferryhouse, you know, end up in Bayreuth and St. Petersburg in Russia and all these places? But they put that on hold. But when they saw this is what they wanted first. So 990 is technically the second book, but now it's the first book. It's a biography from the age of 2 till the age of 16.
So it takes you through the period of...
It takes you through the period of that. It's true story. I could have made the book a lot bigger with so many incidents and horrible things that happened. But I find that people begin to switch off, you know. So I've kept it basically to what happened to me, not what happened to others, though I've seen what happened to others. And the brutality of it was the fear. Fear and brutality was the main factor. Everything was done out of fear. I mean, when you played hurling, you know, we played from fear. If we didn't win, we got beaten by the clergy, that sort of stuff. It was brutal, you know, to say the least. But, you know, what do? Do you wallow in self-pity, or do you fight? And I fought. Our diet, our food was awful. I would never eat a dinner for 10 years. I never had a dinner. And I took the beatings. Every time I took the beatings. And I will not have stew in my house. No matter if it's bolognese or beef stroganoff, you know, it's still stew. But it's probably, you pay a fortune for it in a French restaurant. But I won't have it. And so I took the beatings. The first dinner I ever had was in Clonmel. I went to see my brother. I found I had a brother later on, the brother. But one of the incidents about food, I came into Clonmel for the first time. I had boots at the time, so I took my boots off at Ferryhouse and walked in to Clonmel. But where Lidl's is now, I put my boots on because you got punished if you lost something in your boot. So I walked into Clonmel and it was a different world altogether. The Ritz Cinema was there and I looked around and God, I thought, you know, all this. And I pirouetted on that spot and I saw ladies. I'd never seen a woman in all my life, except from the nurse in Ferryhouse. I got instructions. Burke's Bacon was there, the O'Sheen Cinema was there. And I walked through Clonmel. It must have taken me all of 20 minutes under the arch. I got to my brother's and she said, what would you like for lunch? I said, I don't know. She said, we'll have sausages and mash. And I said, what's that? And my brother turned around and said, what do you mean, what's that? I said, I never heard of it. Sausages and mash. Oh, it was divine. And that's the first dinner I had since since God knows when. So this is the type of life.
So you were 2 years old when you...
I was only 2 years old. Yeah.
So you knew no sort of love of... You know? Yeah,
it's a very sad thing. I've got some friends.
You must have some tenacious personality. Hats so off.
It's very kind of you, but you see, I got their friends, wonderful friends, and I spend Christmas with them, and I hate going there.
Yeah.
Not because I don't want to go there, because I'm so overwhelmed with the affection they have for the family, and I never had that.
Yeah.
I never had that, you know. And only last year I got my first Christmas toy. Think of it, at the age of 82, you get your first Christmas toy.
You're not 82, are you?
And it was a tractor.
You're not 82, really, are you?
I am. I'm 83 in January. I'm an old fogey, as they call it.
But you look amazing.
No. Thank you very much. But no, it's.
But I would not have put 82.
No, I am. I'm coming up to 83, and I've wondered why I've survived this long. There must be a reason for it. But the fact of the matter is, it was brutal. It was fear, and there's hundreds out there who have experienced this. I mean, there's one fellow in Hampstead, he set himself alight, he immolated him. Very much like Jan Palach in Czechoslovakia. You know, and when people ran away and brought back the brutality, you can't do enough of it. But, you know, you survived. The fact is, I didn't know I had a family. When I was in Cappoquin, nobody ever came to see me. I was on my own, you know, and all I remember about Cappoquin was always being hungry, you know, and cold. And then they transferred me to Ferryhouse.
So that was where you started out in a different home?
Yes, yeah. I mean, I went to Ferryhouse 2 years too early. I think the fact that I was too much of a handful for the nuns. But I do remember one nun there who was brutal, and I went back, when I came back here in 1997 to live back here, I went down to Cappoquin and I met an old nun who knew his Mother Patrick, and she agreed with me. So I have a very, very, very good memory. I in fact, sometimes say very photographic, because when I worked in a theatre, I never measured anybody. My mind took in their shape. Yeah. But there's a story, and that's another story in another book. But anyway, I went to Ferryhouse and I got very ill there and that sort of stuff. And it's just the routine and I don't know, people don't believe what happens. Say people say, oh, when I was in school I got a whack, you know. I smile at that and I think, a whack? And we had this strap which was about a foot long and about 2.5 inches wide, double leather belt with coins inside. And that's what you beat you with. And I still got but I got no knuckle in my left hand because of the beatings. Yeah. I got scars here, I got scars everywhere. Yeah. But, you know, it's my family. I didn't know I had a family. You know, I was an orphan. And then suddenly he said one day, you know, you got a visitor. And I said, no, your brother. I said, I don't have a brother. Never had a brother. So he started, this is where the F comes in. Hello, Frank, how are you? And I'm not Frank, you know. This is the story, the book begins at the end. Right. So then you take it backwards. Yeah. It comes. But I mean to say, I didn't know I had a family. I didn't meet my father till I was 17. Yeah. I didn't know who he was. I didn't know who my sisters were. And it's only in 1997 I found I had another brother. Oh. And he was called Michael, and I was called Michael Francis. And the Frank was to differentiate between the first Michael. I didn't know that. Yeah. I never found out. It happened by accident. So I always boasted, I'm the seventh child of a, and I have power. I have great power. And then you realise you have an 8 and it's all thrown out the water, you know. But no, it was a hard life. A lot of people suffered, maybe much more than I did. But you have to fight. Yeah. You have to fight. I worked with an actor, a very famous singer, and he was suffering from cancer, and he was in chemotherapy, and he was a very famous man, and he said to me, Senor Michael, you must fight, and I said yes, and we had a long chat, and he became part of the Three Tenors later on. But you know, it's and you wonder how you end up in an institution, a convict at the age of 2, and then you're in sort of the famous Wagner theatre in Bayreuth, or you're in Bregenz, or you're working in Paris, you know, and you reflect, how did I get here? You know, I know, it's incredible. You know, it's somebody looking after you. But the thing about Clonmel was that people knew what was going on. Yeah. But it wasn't their fault. You couldn't blame them because, again, the power of the church, fear was everywhere. Yeah, sure. You know? I now obviously grew up, and Ferryhouse was the threat that they'd give to children. Like when you were, say, when I was small, like, it'd be all, you'll be sent to the monastery. And that was the biggest monastery threat. Was the name. Yeah, well, there was a phrase around Ireland at the time by parents, if you don't behave yourself, I'll get the cruelty man. The cruelty man was the man who ran the Society for National Revenge of Cruelty to Children. Right. But did he ever realise what cruelty in the children meant? He never had a clue. Yeah. And again, he didn't know. You see, it was very enclosed. Yeah. But with 220 boys there, I mean, you had little cliques. There was humour, of course. You had your own little rumour. But you accepted it as a norm. Because that's all you knew at the time. That's all you knew. It was only afterwards you would have said, what the hell? Yeah, I know. And when I remember I came out, they have this thing, disposal. as if you're a piece of rubbish. And I came out and
That's
I
what they
ended up,
called it when you were being allowed out.
well,
to
no,
school.
they had to find you a job. That was
Right.
one of the things. And they found me a job in Waterville in Kerry. And
place.
I never got paid. I never got paid. I was supposed to get 10 shillings a week. And the other fellow who was from another institution said to me, if he offers you cigarettes on Friday, take them. I said, I don't smoke.
Yeah.
He said, take them. I said, no, I don't smoke.
Sell the
Came
cigarettes.
Friday, he offered me 20 cigarettes. I didn't take them. And he said, fine. And that was it.
Yeah.
So, and then started the journey after to England. And I first met my sister in Limerick Junction. I didn't know who she was. And she called me, you're Frank, you've got to be Frank. I said, no, I'm not. And I finally became sort of, I was skinny, you know. I not long had my hair. They cut my hair off. You used to shave your head off. And of course, I was there with a suit on that was 5 times too big for me. And but there was still something about me that I suppose that when she said you're Frank, I know, you know. It's but no, it's a strange world, you know. But and then I went to Italy to teaching in Italy, and I got deported. Would you believe it?
So your first job, it was you went into
I
tailors.
went into tailors. Yeah.
Yeah.
I used to play football with the famous Mick O'Dwyer.
Oh right.
Down in Kerry, yeah, Mick O'Dwyer, and Mick used to always say, you know, you Tipperary boys, you can't play football. You know, it's like, I mean, that was it. You know, and about 10 years ago, I was up in GA, and his hand came on my shoulder, and I turned around and he said, I told you, Micolini, he said, Tipperary, he remembered me after all this. I was ecstatic, you know, fame at last, you know. The book is actually a true story, and you see photographs in there. The pool actually that's in there. For instance, we dug the pool out. We built the pool, but that was the second pool. The first one was up by the bridge. But there'll be, as I say, there must be hundreds of people out there who've had experience. In fact, I gave the book to my cousin, and he had a worker, and this fella appeared on my doorstep, and he was there for 2 hours, and he said, "Oh, I heard all about Ferryhouse in the old days, how brutal it was, and we had brutality." He said it wasn't as bad as Ferryhouse. I said, hang on a minute. There's no such thing as good and bad brutality.
Yeah.
Brutality is brutality, no matter what you call it.
Yeah.
You know, but you have the scars. I still have the nightmares. I still have flashbacks. You know, if I go into a restaurant and I hear somebody pull a chair up, I automatically react. You know, and sometimes you forget them, and then somebody says something, and bang, bang, they come, and you get bad nights. You know, I mean, writing this was, in a sense, the reason I wrote it now. I lost my brother, and then I lost my sister, and I'm the last of the line. And I went to my sister's funeral, and I did the eulogy. And after the eulogy, we went back to the club, and about 6 women came up to me and said, I've known your sister all my life, but I never knew that. I said, no, she was in the laundry, you know. And again, she bottled it up. They didn't know. So I thought, now is the time to write it. So I sat down, and as I said, I've got a very, very good memory. In fact, some people didn't believe me. When they researched it, they realised I was, even to an old film that I remembered. So I suppose you remember a lot of the bad times. There was very few good times. Very few good times. I mean, you know, we got what they call barn brack once for Christmas. We picked the kerns out and the cherries out and traded them. You see, you learned a system. You have to think of sort of Charles Dickens would have wrote a better novel than this about it, you know. And I'm a great friend of Charlie Dickens, you know, because he did help the poor. He tried to help the poor in those days, you know. But it's a story that people should read, and especially people should read it and look at their own children, their happy children, and think, thank God my children didn't have to go through that, you know. And
that was right here
in
this town, and it's not that long ago.
No, it isn't that long ago. I mean, I don't know, it's just, I just find the fact that even today, people, when they say you're Ferryhouse, they look at you as if there's something wrong with you, you know, as if you're a misfit. Of course I'm a misfit. I mean, I can't stand crowds. I will go to a hurling match, for instance. I couldn't tell you who's there, but I can tell you every detail about the match. I've learned over the years from a very famous philosopher, not so famous philosopher, a Stoic philosopher called Epictetus, who actually teaches you how to handle this sort of thing, you know. Don't worry about externals, you know. So, and he's been very good to me, because I mean, I've had the heart attack, I've got prostate cancer, but I don't give a fig about it, because, you know, I can't do anything about it, you know. So I'm now coming up to my 83rd year. And despite all the stuff that's going on, I'm still standing, you know. But, you know, you have to remember one thing about all this is, you may have had it bad, but you can bet your bottom dollar somebody got a lot worse than you have, you know. Absolutely. And then you think, thank God for me, you know. But it's a good read. I hope it's a good read, and I hope people will try and understand the reality of what happened. There is a passage in it. I don't know if you heard of a man called Primo Levi. Primo Levi was betrayed. He was an Italian Jew who went into a concentration camp, and the book is called "Is This Man?" It's an interesting book, and he charts morning till night on one day, and how he tries to survive one day, and the reasons. And I showed that to somebody, and I showed a passage of Ferryhouse in one day. I took off the heading. They didn't know which was which.
Oh my goodness.
They didn't know which was, because the same thing happened, you know. But he survived the concentration camp. But years later, it got too much for him, and he just committed suicide. So I mean, you know, you think, you know, how do you handle that? But I find Epictetus my saviour.
So the Stoic thing is...
It's a Stoic thing. I mean, it's very hard to be a Stoic in a materialist life.
Yeah.
But, I mean, I get accused of giving things away because somebody says, oh, I like that, and I give it away.
Yeah, but that's non-attachment. That's brilliant, you know?
I mean, I had a friend come up, and I had 2 Murano dolls, beautiful, about a foot tall, and she said, oh, I love those dolls. She said, oh, God, they're great. I said, well, take it away. And she took it away, and she came up about 2 years later, and she said, oh, I love that doll. And the other one was still there. I said, take it away, take the other away. And, you know, you don't, you know, I'm not a materialistic person in that sense, you know, it's just that I wander around in the cloud.
But, you know,
if I go to Florence...
You've wandered many places in that cloud.
If I go to Florence, I'm walking around Florence as if it belongs to me.
Yeah.
You know, I know all the little places, you know. I know nothing about everything, but I know, I like what you see. It's like the Primavera painting, or the Birth of Venus. The Primavera painting is a fantastic painting. But I remember being in Paris once, and I was waiting to go in to see Monet's Water Lilies, and there was a fella giving a lecture, and we were all waiting. In front of me was a woman with a little girl. She must have been about 9 or 7 or 8. It was about 7, I would say. And he was giving a lecture on all these colours and blah, 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 you see. And they left, and she got there, and she said, oh, Mammy, isn't that a lovely picture? Yeah. And I thought, that's it. Yeah. What the child saw in her own mind, you know. And it said everything. And I stood there and thought, yeah, it's a grand picture, you know. It's like, I used to annoy people in opera when I say, how was the band? Yeah. And they say, it's not a band, it's an orchestra, you know. I just wind them up a bit, you know. You have to be a bit of a devil, really, you know. It's just crazy. My partner, he's come with me when in markets, because I heckle like mad, you know.
Oh, do you?
Yeah. Of course, you see, the thing is, when I go to Florence, I speak Italian.
Okay.
So
you can haggle.
I can haggle. Yes. So I mean, it's a jump from Ferryhouse into that, and then ending up in Europe. How the second book will tell you all about it. So it's just, you imagine, you know, Ferryhouse brutality, a convict at 2. People don't believe it, but it's true. It's an old English act which was not repealed. You know, the Americans repealed every act, but Ireland didn't do that, you know, and these acts are still in force, I believe, you know, so I don't know. I mean, I hope people read the book, and a lot of parents should read it. I mean, parents, and actually, as I said, reflect, they look at their children and think, you know, isn't it wonderful that I have my children, even though they can be cantankerous.
I know.
You can put your arms around them and hug them and give them a squeeze, you know. Whereas when we fell down, we were kicked and beaten to get up. Nobody put an arm around us. And I would, you crave, and I'm not craving for empathy, but, you know, affection, a little bit of affection would have gone a long way. Compassion. But we never saw that, you know. Yeah. No, nothing. You never got anything like that. Yeah. So, I mean, I don't know. It's just odd. But most people think I'm off the wall anyway.
No, you know what? It's an important story
to
be told. And obviously, there's a lot more to be told. So.
Yeah, well, I mean to say the stories of theatre, opera and ballet and television is very big. And the story, I like the story behind it, because everybody goes to the theatre, go to the opera, they sit down and they enjoy it. But very few people actually stop and think, how was it put together? What happens backstage? Yeah. And I have penned quite a lot of funny stories that happened. Yeah. Stories like, for instance, a fella rang me one morning and he said, are you Michael Kennedy? I said, yes. Oh, thank God, he said. I said, well, and he put the phone down. And then the phone rang again, and this lady rang me. Are you Michael? I said, yes. Who are you? Oh, I've been trying to get hold of you for months. I said, why? Why do you want to go? Well, she said, I have a special request, she said. I hear you're the only man in the world who can do it. You can perform miracles. I thought, I haven't walked on water yet. And I thought, I recognised the voice. I couldn't put the voice down there. And she ran back and she said, I have a special request. I want you to make my husband's suit that when I first met him 40 years ago. And I thought, I can't do that. But eventually, I did it in the end. She turned out to be a very famous radio television star called Jean Metcalfe, like Miriam Callan is today, you know.
Yeah.
And her husband was a sports commentator. I did it without looking at him, and he wasn't supposed to know.
Okay.
Wasn't supposed to know. It was always very secretive. I did my research. I did it right, you know, blah, blah, blah. And she rang me, and she said, oh, fantastic. She said, there's only one problem. I thought, oh, what have I done now? She said, that night, he wouldn't take it off. He walked up and down the bedroom, and I said, "Is it my fault?"
He looked so good that he wouldn't take it off.
Yeah. You know, it's. I did it when I was seeing him.
You must be incredibly skilled in that.
Yeah, we're all geniuses. I could tell you a story about genius and Michelangelo. We're all gifted. Everybody is, and you know, we all have something that nobody else ever has. And that's the thing you must build on, in my opinion. But it doesn't make you the best, but you do things to your ability. There's such a thing as saying, there's no such thing as a perfect item. It's an item with less faults, you know.
Yeah.
You know, but you know.
There's no such thing as perfection, really, anyway.
So anyway, it's a book. As I said, it's launched here on the 14th of November at 7 o'clock, and I hope people will come. Maybe some people who actually were there, because I know a lot went into the army from Ferryhouse, and those who went in told me it was a cakewalk.
Yeah, compared to that. Imagine.
Yeah. They got fed, they got wet, you know, I mean, we had terrible, the food there was, you know, but again, you see, how do you feed? It was like an army, but an army without, I don't know, it's hard to define, it's just so brutal, you know, it was so...
Like prison.
Yeah, I mean, and there was other places had 800 boys, you know.
Can you imagine?
You know, and there was a fight in one, I think in Letterfrack or somewhere, and the two kids fighting didn't know they were brothers, and that's an example of what went on. I mean, as I said, I didn't know I had a family. And then suddenly I had a brother, and suddenly my grandmother. It's very hard. You'll never get over it. You never will. You'll always be a person who went to Ferryhouse.
So the writing of the book is probably catharsis, is it? And is it to help with that, or?
It is, yes. It was great therapy. I mean, I had some very bad nights.
I'm sure it was, you know, awful to bring back.
It was, yeah. I mean, there was many nights when I just sort of cracked up. But I actually felt, if I tell the truth, once the truth is out there, and I think it was to do with my sister, because they didn't know her.
Yeah.
You know, and I felt that very sad about that, because my sister was very quiet. I had 3 sisters. They were all in the laundry, you know, and...
Was that in Limerick?
Oh, no, that was in Dundrum.
Right.
There's a passage in there very personal to my family. But the fact of the matter, it's to illustrate the environment of the time, you know, and what really went on, and they're still in denial, you know. And I did say to people, this is not the end of it. Things will come out, because, I mean, you know, what can you do? You can't blame. It's like when I confronted the clergy the first time, he said, I wasn't there. I said, no, but don't shoot the messenger, he said. I said, yes, but I can wound you. And I made him understand, and we didn't agree. We became friends, but we don't agree. I was in the guest at the Vatican for a week, and I saw what was going on there. And you know, I went to the Basilica, for instance. I sat down, I took out my book to read, and a fella came along and said, told me in Italian, I must move. That the place is reserved. I refused. You know, he said, there's a high mass. I said, no, I'm not coming here for mass. I'm coming here to sit down and relax and read my book. No, he said, you can't do that. It's reserved. And I said, no, I won't move. Off he went, and he brought this big fella back. And this fella came on, he said, you must move. I said, you lay a hand on me, I said, and I'll create a scene. I said, not only that, and what he said to me was, you know, you are un porca miseria. You're a miserable pig. So I turned around and I said to him, "Scusi, signor, tu è grande porca miseria." And his face went white. But he left me alone. Yeah. But you see, this is sort of bullying. Yeah. And I don't like bullying, and I don't like authority. Yeah. Because, you know, bullying especially, it doesn't come with beating somebody. There's a mental brutality as well, and there's a verbal brutality. Yeah. And I won't have it, you know. Yeah. And I mean, it's like one actor said to me, "I'm a sir. You must call me sir." I said, "You're what?" I said, "I will never do such a thing." Yeah. Well, he said, "Come on." He said, I'm a knight. I said, "No, I won't do that. I'll report to the management." I said, "Carry on. I'm not responsible for the management." And when I said to him, I won't put on phone. And he went away.
Yay!
No, but it's just that, why should I kowtow It's and again we go back to the Michelangelo genius story. Yeah. That's a classic example of how people can be, but that's a story for another time. It's very funny.
Michael, I could stay here talking to you all day. You have so many good stories. Yeah. Thursday the 14th, 7 p.m. here in the Arts Centre. The launch of 990. So everybody's invited.
Everybody's invited, yes. Everybody's invited, and I've got friends coming down from Kilkenny. They're lovely friends. So they're bringing down driver's cider, so you can drink cider without getting breathalyzed.
Very good, very good. Okay.
So I tell you, you're very good, But no, it was hard. It was very hard, but it's a relief, Yeah. And they're right in saying having this book first, because to have the other one before this wouldn't have made much sense.
Chronologically now, this will make sense.
But then there's 3 stories set in Italy.
Yeah.
They're not quite written in Italian, but they're. Right. I plotted a robbery.
Oh, very good.
In the museum in Florence, and I measured it out. Oh. You're mad. You're mad. I just don't like authority. I don't like bullies. I don't verbal, that sort of thing. I had a life of it. Yeah. And I don't want it anymore.
It's enough.
It's a shame. But Clonmel, the guards in Clonmel never knew what was going on. They did their job. But if only they knew. But they didn't. You see, I walked around Clonmel, and my sister didn't even recognise me. Yeah. She said to her mum, that fella there looks like Michael, Jim's brother. She didn't know. We were so skinny, so ill-fed. We looked like we walked everywhere. Yeah. But it's you move on. That sort of thing.
And you've done so well. So.
Well, I don't know about that. I mean, I had my first own home in my own island. In Ireland, I never had a home in Ireland. I bought an old run-down building. I spent about 7 years restoring it. And when my brother saw it, he said to his wife, "Only an idiot would buy this place." But it basically slept on the floor for 3 years. Yeah. And somebody said, "What you do that?" I said, "Well, if I can survive Ferryhouse, I can survive anything." Yeah. And I did. I restored it to what I think it should be, So it's my first home in my own country,
Lovely.
And it's in my own county as well. So I can open my front door and I see Schlieve and Mon.
Oh, nice.
And and I talk to the rabbits. I talk to Charlie. I talk to Charlie. Charlie's my friend, but Charlie doesn't understand me.
Yeah.
And he comes up most days. He follows me up most days, and we have long conversations. And in the end, I know he's happy because he wags his tail. So.
Oh, they're great dogs, aren't they?
Well, he's not my dog. He comes up, he knocks on the window and everything.
No way.
He knocks on the window. And I feed him. I went there once, I gave him my lunch. I had no lunch, and I gave him my lunch. And I thought, where's my lunch? And then I realised I gave it to Charlie. But he was happy, so
everybody needs a Charlie in
life. Everybody needs Charlie in life. And he's not my dog. I'd love to have a dog, but because I move around the place, it's not fair to the dog, They have to be looked after.
Yeah, they do. Properly, Yeah, they're like a child.
Yeah. Well, Charlie he comes up, knocks on the window. You see him, suddenly you see this black thing comes up, bang, bang. And
it's time for your walk.
And he comes up and he sits in the kitchen. Oh, wow. And then they won't leave him into his kitchen. And he won't leave the kitchen. I say, "Get out, Charlie, out, get out." And he looks at me as if to say, "Why should I move? I'm happy here." But it's lovely,
Michael, I just want to wish you all the best of luck with it. This and the next
two,
and I can't wait to read all of them.
Kind. Thank you very much.
Looking forward.
I'm sorry I blab on a bit, but it's
absolutely not. We love a blabber here. Thanks a million.
Okay, my love. Thank you.
And that's it for another episode of the South Tip Arts Podcast. Don't forget, Michael F. Kennedy's book 990 launches here at South Tipperary Arts Centre on Thursday the 14th of November at 7 p.m. Talk to you all again next time.